Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel, and welcome to our series Playing D4. So in this series, I'm going to show you some good lines that you can use against particular openings, against particular defenses that your opponent can choose. And today, I wanted to show you another good game played by me against the Grandmaster that I played recently in Lichess. It was again in the so-called 150 attack. The 150 attack we basically use against Perch defense, modern defense. Even King's Indian player can choose sometimes to go into the Perch defense sometimes. So that's why it's also, I think, a good preparation against the King's Indian player. And today, this 150 attack comes with a different line. I've analyzed so far many lines on my YouTube chess channel, which your opponent can play it. But I think this 150 attack, it's one of the most healthy openings that you can choose against these types of setups of black. So as I said, please check out my D4 series. I've explained there my opening preparation against, for instance, the Queen's Gambit decline, the Slav defense. We have also analyzed how to beat, for instance, the Dutch defense. If you have troubles maybe to play against the Benoni, I've also checked it out, so you can also maybe find good opportunities for you in order to beat this kind of defenses. So let's check out now my game against the Grandmaster. It was, I think, a good win, as I myself am not a Grandmaster, so that's why it's always a pleasure for me when I beat really stronger opponents than I am. So here I played, first of all, this move d4. My opponent responded with move knight to f6. We have knight to f3. That's simply, as I said, I've explained it many times. I most of the times like to go into this knight to f3 lines because still I have the flexibility to play the move c4, but I don't want to expose myself immediately with the move c4. I'm delaying the c4 move. If my opponent, for instance, goes into the Nimzo Indian preparation, then I'll go c4 and go into normal line. So here my opponent shows his cards that he's basically going into Grunfeld maybe setup, or he could go King's Indian Perch defense, modern defense setup. So that's why in my opening preparation I played the move knight to c3. I've explained also in my London system series, if you have followed my YouTube chess channel, I have this London system series. When your opponent plays the move d5, then I go into a Barry attack London system with bishop to f4. Here my opponent plays the move bishop to g7, and I of course occupy the center with my e-pawn e4. So d6. There are also lines with d5. I will explain them also in my 150 attack series. It's a very aggressive approach. It's sort of a Grunfeld setup by black. After e takes d5, knight to d5 could happen, and then black could comfortable game. But so far, I wanted to tell you that you should probably go here with the move e5, and then after knight to e4, then afterwards I'm going to explain you also this line. So my opponent played move the d6, and now I'm playing again my 150 attack preparation with bishop to e3, queen to d2. We're trying to play this queen and bishop battery, trading off the dark square bishop here, h4, h5, and the checkmate on the h file. So my opponent castles, queen to d2. Knight to g4 will explain also in the continuation of the series. If your opponent tries to chase the bishop, what can happen then. So here, after move queen to d2, my opponent plays the move c6. This c6 move is a very flexible idea, because not that this move only is sort of a preparation to play the move d5. I think the most important thing for a modern defense or Perch defense player is the move b5, because as I said, we want to create this h4, h5 attack and then trade off the dark square bishop. So it's probably that I will castle on the queen side here. So that's why the c6 preparation is really a great preparation to play the b5 move and then expand further on the queen side. If I castle queen side here, then we would have the so-called opposite side attack game, in which I attack the king side and my opponent attacks the queen side. So that's why c6 is really one of the most natural ideas here by black. I played bishop to h6 immediately. So I wanted to really open the position. My opponent tried b5, and now comes, I think, also a very important move, bishop to d3, which protects first of all our e4 pawn, because the serious threat is of course b4. Then when my knight moves, then I could lose maybe the e4 pawn. So the best way probably here is to move bishop to g4, which the engine suggests. There are still lines. There is really one great gameplay by Anish Giri against Shakriya Mamedjadov. We'll also analyze the game in the continuation of the 150 series. So bishop to g4 is, I think, the best way here for black to proceed, because h4, h5, the h5 square would then be really cemented by the bishop and the knight and the pawn here. So as I said, this black should probably play in this particular line, but my opponent played a mistake. He played the move knight to d7. It's really a mistake, I think, because first of all, he's blocking out his light square bishop, and I'm pointing out this is a grandmaster, and he plays really here now a positional mistake, locks his bishop. There are also now some tactical threats with the move e5. I took now bishop takes g7, king to g7, and now e5. That's the most important thing about this 150 attack. You can play basically on both sides. You can play also sometimes on the queen side, on the king side, but you can also create a nice pawn breakthrough motif with e5. And now, of course, my opponent had to react. He played knight to e8, and I played now, I think, it's the best move. It's the move h4. The h4 move is very, very important. We are threatening basically. We can even leave some pawns hanging in the center here. It's not the point about that we are struggling now for the center. It's h4 is a serious threat now. We want to play h5, h takes g6, and then queen to h6, queen to g7, queen takes h7, because our opponent with the move knight from f6 to e8 has left the defense of the h7 square. So that's why this e5 motif is very important to deflect the knight from the defense of the king and then strike back again on the flanks. But even if my opponent takes here, as I said, let's see, h5, he can take another pawn. We can simply continue to push. If he takes even the knight, we're still there and we can attack and create, I think, even a checkmate threat here. So that's why it's very, very risky for black to play the setup. He should have proceeded, as I said, with the move bishop to g4. That's why he has to block out now the position. This was played in the game. It's the move h5, and now comes the tricky part of this particular line. So when we see this move h5, we can notice, of course, that black has managed to block the position now on the king side. It's not so easy for me anymore to push the pawns. Even a g4 move is possible, but it's very risky. What I'm recommending you here is a very nice move e6. It's a pawn sacrifice which splits the pawn structure, because after move h7, h5, you see the g6 is a little bit weak, and we're now trying to deflect also this pawn from the defense in the game. My opponent tried f takes e6, and now I missed the tactic because it was a blitz game, but I'm learning also something in this series. Here I could have played something like bishop takes g6. After king to g6, you see queen to g5. It's game over wherever you go. You still get one check. After something like maybe king to g7, rook to h3, rook to g3. It's very dangerous, and I think my opponent can resign the game. So, but I played queen to g5. I didn't take immediately. That's pawn on g6. My opponent tried to cover it. I played knight to e4, simply attacking the rook, rook to f5, queen to g3. Wanted to really stay on this very important file, although maybe slightly better is to move queen to d2 here. But okay, as I said, in long games I would calculate this position better. I would really try to see now all of the sidelines, all of this sidelines of sidelines. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So, but still, this 150 attack, as I said, it's a healthy opening, and we having a good position. So there are maybe 2, 3, 4, even sometimes 5 good lines for you to play. So that's why I think you should really try to play it. So after move queen to g3, still I have the advantage in the game. My opponent tried knight to f6. I played knight to g5, attacking the rook. Queen to a5, attacking the king, c3, b4. And now I decided to kingside castle because I got a little bit endangered here by the queen and the pawn move. Here my opponent takes. I take b takes c3. Still, this rook is a little bit trapped. If you move the rook again from the defense somehow of the g6, it's very risky. Then there are, let's see, a possible continuation, maybe something like rook to d5. Then you have this nice tactic, knight to e6, bishop to e6, and you see now again the queen comes very, very active into the game. I think again black is simply lost. So after b takes c3, queen to c3, we have bishop takes f5, e takes f5, rook to e1. Now I'm including my last piece into the attack. I really have now a nice attacking formation with these two knights dancing around the king, the queen still on the g file, the rooks now are also participating in the game. In the game, my opponent tried king to f8, protecting, knight to e6, bishop to e6. Here we have rook to e6, and now my opponent made a mistake. But still, even if you play something like king to g7. Still, I can play, of course, rook takes e7. Then this knight will come into the game. I can double rooks here also on the e5. My opponent made the blunder, king to f7, and I played knight to g5, and the queen is hanging. It was game over. So king to f8, queen takes c3, and in this position, my opponent resigned. But let's go back, as I said, let's go into your opening prep again. So here, bishop to d3. What we should notice first, protecting our e4 pawn, because he can play now the move b4. It's not a problem. We can play knight to e2. We're protecting our e4, and you see still black is losing another tempo in order to protect his weak b4 pawn. So afterwards, I think after the move here, knight from b to d7, the game was basically one-way ticket, because as I said, bishop to g4 is the best move here for black, but we'll come also to that part. We'll also analyze this particular line in the continuation of our 150 attack series. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. If you want to study more d4 theory, check out my whole series. Here's the link. These are suggested lines by me. I think you can apply them. I think they're very instructive. I think they're very easy to memorize, which is most important, and I think these are healthy opening structures. I'm not recommending you here something like the King's Gambit, Evans Gambit, some dubious openings that you have to learn from a tactical point of view. I think in this line that I'm suggesting you can apply really the common strategies, healthy developing healthy opening moves, and really play good attacking formations against black. So okay, meanwhile you can watch my, as I said, my d4 series, and if you have troubles to play against e4, check out my hyper accelerating Dragon Sicilian defense series, in which I show you a very nice effective way how to play against e4. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.